Hey everyone, it's Carissa. Welcome to Satur-YAY. We are celebrating the weekend by getting our craft on. And today I am going to be using one of these memory box plush dies to create a fun tag project. Now keep in mind, you don't have to use these for a plushy kind of like dimensional item. You can totally sew these onto a card. You can cut them out of paper. You don't have to cut them out of felt. But I wanted to show you a few of the options. And in the description below, I'm going to link not only the three I'm showing you here, but another few cute options that are available. So this is the plush heart pocket die. You saw the hedgehog, and then I will be using the cupcake, the cute cupcake one. And I wanted to show you that these memory box dies come on this magnetic sheet. So it's very convenient for storage. All you need to do is pop this into one of your Essentials by Ellen storage pockets, and you are ready to go. This cute cupcake die that I'm going to be using today comes with 5 dies. So you have the cupcake base, you have 2 options for frosting. You have the little cupcake cup, is that what it's called? And then a cherry for the top. Now I wanted to show you the sizing on these. This is an A2 card front here that I have. And this makes a perfect size for a focal image on a card front. And like I said earlier, you could totally cut these out of paper and put them onto a card front, or you can do them out of felt and sew them onto a card front, but today I'm going to make a little plushie. So here is my felt indexing system. I actually stole this from Jennifer McGuire because she is such a genius when it comes to storage and organization. So I have little hearts cut out of each of the colors of felt that I have, and then I have them labeled with the color and the manufacturer name. Now, all of these that I'm using today happen to be Tailored Expressions felt. They are amazing. And I'm going to be using the Cream Puff, the Aqua Mist, and the Strawberry. Now that one on the end, the red hot one, I didn't end up using because I didn't end up doing a cherry on top. I know, crazy, huh? So I'm going to start with my Cream Puff felt. And do you see how I'm leaving that kind of rolled up on the platform there? That's because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to roll it back up after I'm done because I store them in the rolls. So I'm going to leave it kind of mostly rolled up there, and then I'm going to run this through my Big Shot. And I actually messed up on this one. It kind of unrolled a little more than I wanted it to, but I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. And now I'm using my paper piercing tool to just poke out the little hanging chads that are left in my cupcake base. Now, here's how you do this without unrolling it. See the roll there on the left? I'm going to put my piece of felt there and my die, and then I'm going to slide my platform out and slide that top cutting plate in first. And then I'm just going to run it through just to where the die has cut and then run it backwards. And then my lazy self does not have to roll up that entire roll of felt. I like to keep it on the roll because as you saw there, I was able to fit that in between some other shapes that I had previously die cut, and I am not wasting any of my precious felt. Now this color here is probably my favorite color of felt. This is called the Aqua Mist felt from Tailored Expressions. It's beautiful. I used it in a previous Satur-YAY, I believe, when I did a whole thing on felt, and I'll be sure to link that in the description and throw in a card for you so you can easily find that video as well. And then I realized that I needed a second cupcake base, so I'm just going back and cutting that. Now, Julie Ebersole did a Hello Monday this week on the little hedgehog, and so I would encourage you to check that out, and I'll link that in the description below as well. And she had some great tips. Maybe I should have watched that video before I filmed this one. But be sure to check that out. So in order to add my decorative stitching, I am going to do what's called a back stitch. So I've come up through the first hole and down through the next hole. And then I've skipped to the third hole and I've come up through the third hole and then back down through the second hole. So each time I'm going to skip to the empty hole. See, I'm coming up through that empty hole, and then I'm going to go back down through the previous hole. I kind of pulled that right out of my hand there. But I'm just pulling that through, and then watch me here. I'm going to go back down through the previous hole. This is called a back stitch. It's going to give me a stitch in every single area so that there's no gaps in my stitching. Once I get the decorative stitching done on that cupcake cup, I'm going to sew the 3 layers together. So this is the cupcake cup and the 2 cupcake bases. And once again, I'm going to do the back stitch on this. This was a little bit tricky at times getting all 3 holes lined up, but it's totally doable. And this is something that you could totally do in front of the TV or in the car or while you're waiting at your kid's dentist appointment. Whatever it is, this is something you can kind of easily take on the go with you if you have these felt pieces already cut out. Now for my stuffing, I am going to use cotton balls, but in order to keep them from being just 3 giant lumps of cotton in there, you see how I'm pulling them apart so it's more like a fluffy stuffing rather than 3 lumps of cotton in there. And then I stuffed that into there, sewed up the bottom, and now I'm just gonna stitch this little frosting onto the top. I've gone ahead and add the decorative stitching all the way around that, and now I'm just adding a stitch on both sides to keep that on. Now I've left the cupcake cup kind of open to where you can stuff something in there, and you can actually run it down through the frosting as well, which I'll show you that in just a bit. So I'm going to put this on a tag. I decided to do something different than just a card. I'm going to do a tag this time. I'm using the My Favorite Things Stitch Traditional Tags to cut out this Essentials by Ellen white linen cardstock. It's one of my favorite. When I'm using something that has a lot of white space, I think this linen texture goes a long way in adding something and keeping it from feeling too plain. So I've gone ahead and used my grid mat to mark the center of that, and I used my Crop-A-Dile to punch out the hole for the top of the tag. And here is where there was a miracle that happened. I actually had money in my wallet to show you how this works. So I have 2 teenagers, and they are sucking me dry for cash. I cannot keep enough cash on hand. Between lunch money and Mom, I need money for a polo shirt, and Mom, I need money for my water polo Speedo. By the way, did you know that those water polo Speedos, they're like man panties and they cost $50. Yes, my friends, 50 bucks. But anyway, you saw how I rolled up the money there and I stuffed it into that cupcake. So it's a fun little holder. Now it's not large enough to hold a gift card, but that heart that I showed you in the beginning definitely is big enough to hold a gift card. So now I'm going to do a little embossing on this tag. So I've set up my Big Shot like I'm going to emboss on the number 1 tab. Then I've put down my bottom cutting plate, my silicone mat, my paper, and then I'm going to use my dies blade side down onto the tag. Now I decided to use the silver linings dies here, and I've just kind of held them together with a little bit of the micro pour tape. And this is just going to create a ray pattern coming out from the center so that I can kind of put my cupcake over it, and it kind of looks like there's this really cool ray pattern coming out from behind it, like it's a shining cupcake. It was just something fun to add a little something to the tag. Now, when you're keeping things really nice and white like this, texture, like I said before, will add that little touch that you need to keep it from feeling just too plain. So now it's time to emboss my sentiment here. I am using the Ranger Superfine Detail Gold Embossing Powder on some Essentials by Ellen Vellum. I went ahead and prepped my vellum surface with my EK Success powder tool, stamped it in some Versamark ink, and then added my embossing powder. And then I made sure my heat tool was good and hot before I took it to the vellum, and that's going to minimize the warping on that. I cut it down to where it would fit onto my tag, and then I hid my glue, that is the Zig 2-way glue pen, just behind that embossing there. And I place that onto my tag, and then I'm just going to staple on a couple of little strips of pattern paper with my tiny attacher. Now, the staple is going to be hidden if that bothers you, but I think it's kind of a fun element to add. So you can see how this is all kind of shaping up. And because I wanted this cupcake to be removable where the person could take it off and keep it, I am going to go ahead and just punch a couple of, I'm just making holes in this with my paper piercer. And I'm going to come up through that hole, run my needle through the back of my plushie, and then back down through the second hole. And I'm just going to tie this cupcake onto this tag. Now, in order to keep this cupcake in the position I wanted it to be in, I ended up having to tack it down in 2 different places. But by tacking it on with a little bit of thread, it makes it very easy for the recipient just to snip these little threads and take it off and keep that little plushie if they want to. I kind of had my nieces in mind when I was making this, and I thought this would be really fun for them to kind of keep and have. You could also add like a pin on the back of them and make them into like a little lapel pin, or you could do, I don't know, maybe a hair barrette. It may be a little large, but some people like big bows and they cannot lie. So use your imagination. I think you could really do a lot with these things. Now I wanted to finish off my tag with some sequins, and so I am just squirting out a little bit of hot glue onto my craft mat. I'm picking it up with a toothpick and then using that to apply the sequin onto that felt area. And I also used that strawberry twine to make a little bow for the left side of my cupcake, and I used a little hot glue to hold that in place as well. So that completes my project for today, a fun little plushie that you can use in a lot of ways. I've attached it to a tag here for a birthday gift. But like I said, the sky is the limit on these, and if you don't want to stuff them, they don't have to be quite as dimensional. Now, Julie showed where she put a little bit of rice in that hedgehog the other day, and I thought that was absolutely genius. Way to go, Julie. So be sure to check that video out. As always, I will have links to all the products used in this project in the description at YouTube, as well as over at the Classroom blog where you can see more still shots and find more information. All of these products are available for purchase at ellenhudson.com. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this project, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.